Is it going to be the same technology? Is it going to be the same learning process? How are you going to be teaching something that's supposed to be mobile in a static form? So why are we causing contradiction right away from the beginning? And for some of us, these are realities of time that we have seen. It is only the teaching for learning concepts, like I mentioned, that can actually make us to deliver on SDG. If we don't have that at the back of our mind, no matter whatever we are doing, it's just the part of the drama. And it will result in drama, definitely. I'll move on to speak to some of those things that are very important in, okay, 5 minutes, okay. In redefining pedagogy, and essentially I will speak to issues of policy, but our understanding now is that we believe that technology can fix bad policy. Technology will accelerate you going into a bad destination with a bad policy. You can accelerate in error. That is a possibility. You can be accelerating in a reverse order. That is scientific. It is not that acceleration must be forward. You could be decelerating now. You think you're accelerating. So it is not about policy. What are you doing about the policy? So if it is not right and you now bring technology to run a bad policy, the destination is. So when you talk about approach and methodology, today we should be talking about animating, simulating. That is the kind of things that, in fact, I must confess to you, when I went for my postdoc at Mississippi State University, I heard a prof talking about Alcorn State. I visited your university. We'll talk about that later. That's where I have my visiting position in the US. And it was a postdoc. That was the first time I need to confess to you that I used virtual reality for me to understand biology more than what I've heard since primary school to PhD level. Because all what I've been exposed to is to draw it. But now I can move it myself. Remove this vein, it can remove. I saw what is vein, what is artery, what is this. One by one. How many? When they say this one has 200,000, I can see it. I move from my lab to the Hollywood to move around the street. You know, these are things that then compare that people that are exposed to that kind of learning to your own children and my children and myself. And we are living in the same world. So you're talking about content. You are talking about a lot of curriculum. People does not understand what content wear means. Courseware. People are going to be the driver of vehicle. Why do you buy a beautiful car when you have a wrong driver? So people that are going to run all of this, we need to actually know when we need to acquire some technology. You acquire technology when you know that there is a need for that technology and it is cost effective. Then you need to know when you need to acquire and adapt. Not copy and paste methodology that we are used to. And you need to know when you need to create, when it is highly expensive and it is not available. So there are reasons for all of this. And those are the kind of things that we need to understand. One fundamental thing that I need us to really understand again is that technology could be an add-on and you can integrate. If it's an add-on, it's just a phase to say, let us rub it on the surface to accelerate some processes. But when it becomes an integral part of the system, it is better. One of the models that works that we don't realize and celebrate in this country, no matter its challenges, is the National Open University of Nigeria, with carrying capacity of over 500,000 students, compared to all other universities combined together in terms of population. You will know their position and the kind of things. Yes, it could have its own challenges. I'm not saying it's perfect, but they have an elaborate learning system that is competitive enough. Do you know we still go out to go and be looking for a way of buying that technology that is available here? I don't want to mention names, but really, I know where it happens. So let me say that essentially, we have moved on from just having classrooms to incubation and acceleration. So for a lot of projects and programs and schooling now, we are moving to a place where you can have both vertical and you can have horizontal bonding in learning. That's why you see a lot of ops now. And you see people that is actually networking there. There's no more room need in the future for classroom formalities because all those ones are going to be challenging. Let me propose what the future will look like. The future will look like us using leveraging a lot of technology integration, essentially what we call the extended realities, which is a combination of virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. In that, when you are going to see, going into the future, is for you to be able to do surgery. For example, a medical student doing surgery that is going to be non-invasive, that is going to be bloodless, and you can actually do it in real time. I understand what you are doing. You will see a situation whereby people do a lot of in silico science that we do today, whereby you do combination of elements virtually, and you know what is going to give you without actually wasting any resources. I know that there are a lot of case stories I want to actually speak to, but because of time, I will speak to the one that has to do with the S2B that we run, which is a business to business, B2B first. We run that one between 2016 to 2021. What do we do on the B2B platform? We realize that people are talking, a lot of people, government, copy and paste, they are talking about entrepreneurship, startups, everything. We don't have a problem about that. The problem we have is that the actors in those sectors are not privileged to go to the school of business. They are not found in the business school. So we look at the curriculum for a standard MBA university and we democratize it. And this particular program takes us 5 years to take each topic from the MBA school and teach it to people that are owners of business directly. At the end of the day, what do we achieve? We have on our database today, we speak to nothing less than 250 CEOs every month across the world. And we have a platform whereby we are now teaching them what you need to go and learn in the MBA in a way that they can actually appreciate it. We listen to them, we subject it to models, and that was what really happened. And immediately we finished that, early 2022, we just look at it that, okay, now we are talking about business generally, but there's no interaction between STI and business. That's where we now we started what we call science, technology, innovation to business. Whereby we are actually making life easier for these business people to say, why do you need to keep your accounts like that? Must it be in paper? Can't you automate? You can do this on your phone. And some of them started appreciating what we are doing. In the future, when you see the role of the teacher, teachers are going to move from teaching to what we call facilitation. And that is going to be the journey, as I showed it over there. Moving from just mere presentation, people are going to understand more when you move from presentation to demonstration. When you drill and practice, is an higher level of education. When you make it interactive, it is higher. And finally, when you make it collaborative, then people can actually learn sitting down in Nigeria with their colleagues anywhere in the world. One very good example is the Google Classroom. I'm going to conclude now because they say my time is up. First one is that the future is that the education is going to go mobile. Anywhere you are going, it's supposed to go with education. With smartphone, education is with you. The new classroom is going to be the smartphone. Then let us move on. The educational system in Nigeria has its own challenges, but their solution can actually be sought from this academy, from the outcome of a lot of R&D activity. We believe that any policy the government is doing, I want to give this case study, please. When we went to Egypt, I think one of my organs that we went together was here. Part of the places we visited was the oldest academy of science on the continent of Africa, which is that of the Egypt. What we noticed was that they are the one that were appointed to be running their centers of excellence. No center of excellence in Egypt. In fact, it was in the custody of the academy. So because they know they have the aggregate of experts and they now have representation on their board, a situation whereby the tertiary education system owns a lot of centers of excellence that are in isolation without the academies having interventions is not going to be sustainable. That is the point. People are on the academy in those countries that they are just there for mentoring. They don't need money. Some of them are not saying you should pay us, but their expertise is being recognized. And in doing all of this, it's going to be important for us that for anything we need to do, academy should not be looking at something that is government alone. Even on the knowledge hubs we are creating now, both on institution, outside the institution, let us be interested. There is no policy that is going to be successful if there is no injection of STI. I've listed a lot of things. Part of the strategic investment that the academy should be looking at is going to be for shared facility. I'm happy that the digital economy minister just launched the shared facility platform, a center on shared facility. We need to get there and know what type of data do we need to have in this country when it comes to academia. It goes beyond digitization of thesis. That is not the business. Why are you digitizing what is obsolete? It's a mere waste of time. We can't continue this way. So in thanking you, you can see clearly what I listed, some other things. I want to summarize and wrap up like this. One, we are going to be moving. The future is that we are moving from bricks to clicks. That is fundamental. It's going to be by clicking. You are already clicking. Either you like it or not, you must click now. In fact, if you don't have house, if you don't have a brick over your head, you must click. So it's going to be from classroom to the cloud. Either you like it or not. It's going to move from being static to mobile. Education must be mobile going forward. It's going to be from teaching to facilitating. A lot of professors will become facilitator. And that is the way to go. And they make more money anyway, if the model is right. It's not by sapping your energy. Why do you need to repeat the same thing if you want precision? When you can record yourself and they can listen to you over the time, and somebody is paying you $1 for every listening, compared to you sitting down and you are repeating your energy, sapping your energy every time, and they are paying you a gross of less than $1,000 in a month. It doesn't make sense. So I think that is the future. Look, we move to gadgets. Libraries should become resource centers. That is what I experienced in my university in the US. That was when I know that I don't go to university to go and read art book. There is training for me every month. I mean, every week, sorry, for all the academia in those. And that was what we intended to do in third form before we left. We want to turn all of them. Not only is going to be building, what is happening in the building? So we could actually be making money and at the same time be doing a lot of. So bulkiness is going to turn to smartness. Limitation is going to turn to access, and the pedagogy is going to be run by technology. So in taking this further, when you look at the flyer that is just beside this, because of this inspiration that we receive from this particular topic, talking on this platform, we're actually moving forward to look at smart business. That's what we call technovation. That is technology with innovation. Remember, and I want to say it clearly, technology is not about ICT and internet. Innovation is not about ICT alone and internet. It is very, very broad. When you go to a center, for example, in University of Rwanda, where they are talking about innovation in learning mathematics and science. Do you know what they did? They just come up with a facility that allows everybody in the same room to learn at the same pace. And they use it to cancel disability. How do I mean? The facility allows people that can see to learn, people that cannot see, you can learn. And at the same time, if you cannot hear, you can feel. And it is incorporated in a single cloud. So when everybody is in that room and you are learning, it's not going to be a function of maybe I have this disability. They use technology to cancel disability. So if you are going to see what we need to do further, please kindly join us at the next session where we have enterprising technovation for sustainable, smart, and tertiary education. That section is going to be handled with our partners from, we are looking at Mexico model, Finland model, and we are going to be looking at the Nigerian problem. I thank you so much for listening, and I hope I've been able to contribute. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you. Can we give him another round of applause? Thank you very much for being able to move from research and development to even education, pedagogy, and the like. We move on quickly to the next speaker. We're going to now do a flash presentation. A flash presentation is introduce your work and then go to what you did. What do you want us to hear? Leave the introduction, leave a lot of teaching from what you want to tell us. So the next person to speak is Saliu is not here. Is Saliu here? No, it's not here. We have so the next person is Dr. Adeniyi David, who will be speaking for about 5 minutes. I think you go there. We can go there. Thank you.
the president of the academia, distinguished professors, senior colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My presentation is on e-mobile internet protocol version 6 testbed for interoperability of Nigerian education, services, and network. My name is Dr. Odi Adeniji from Department of Computer Science, University of Ibadan. Agenda: introduction, problem statement, review from literature, methodology, result and discussion, and conclusion. Introduction: the diversity of education methods, services, and protocols promoted disparate educational services in Nigeria. This diversity has not promoted resource sharing and has encouraged duplication of efforts. It is no doubt that the university system in Nigeria needs to complement each other, bearing in mind the limited resources available in individual university system. So with the introduction of Internet Protocol version 6, presently we are using Internet Protocol version 4, but there is a little challenges with that protocol as defined by Internet Engineering Task Force, that that's the issue of depletion layer. We are told from review that very soon the internet will crash. So as a result of that, countries of the world have been moving from IPv4 to IPv6. So Nigeria ecosystem has come of age and has attained maturity level to identify the futuristic role of internet. With the introduction of the next generation internet version 6, divergent technology will be brought to a platform to facilitate resource sharing, capacity development, and optimization of resources. Since yesterday, we have had a lot of people talking to us, but the question that comes to our mind is that, do we have a robust platform that this knowledge will be placed so that people can share it so that they can develop themselves? So the Internet Protocol version 6 will provide this opportunity. So in order to solve this diversity of resources affecting Nigerian education services and network, route optimization techniques in IPv6 was developed as a very good option in scaling this problem. Now, if you look at the next slide, we have a lot of nodes. You can see a fridge, mobile phone, you can see a lamp that is there. All these things are going to be powered by IPv6. Right now, as we are seated, we have the tradition or the paradigm that is being shifted to IoT, whereby we have a lot of devices that have been connected to the internet. Now, a demo was demonstrated sometimes in Malaysia of an household woman. She was at the market and she wanted to access the contents of the things inside her fridge. So what she did was that she had a fridge at home that is powered by IPv6. So she just simply ran to that platform, she clicked it, and at the end of the day, she was able to view every content inside that fridge in real time. So there is no need of traveling back home to go and check manually. So she was able to do that. So with the advent of IPv6, all these opportunity will be brought for use. Now, IPv6, before it came up, we have IPv4. And one problem with IPv4 is that the address allocation will soon finish. Sometimes in 2002, 2006, right there in Malaysia, the pilots and organization, or the pilot in ministry, to look at the roadmap of IPv6. And before I left that country, IPv6 was deployed and is being used in most of the university. So the problem here is the IPv6 testbed for resource sharing in Nigerian educational system and networks are not readily available. So there is need for us to develop platform for divergence of Nigerian education services and network, which IPv6 is going to do that. So I have some few literature review. I'm going to skip that because of time. Let me quickly speak on the methodology. In the methodology, we have 3 phases to the methodology. All these are practical. In phase 1, we have mobile IPv6 platform for Linux. And beside that, you can see the nodes that are available. And the interconnectivity of the network, we have the home agents, the corresponding node, the corresponding router, and the mobile node. When the speaker was talking the other time, he said, everything is going to be mobile. So he's a mobile 1, and now I'm mobile 2. But what drives this particular platform is the mobile router. So we are able to develop that. And in phase 2, we develop NEMO. NEMO stands for network mobility. That means as we are seated here, we can reach any member of our family through our devices, which may contain 1 or 2 interfaces. Like I left Ibadan. My Ibadan is the home agent. I moved from Ibadan to Lagos. I have my node with me, and as I'm moving, and the mobile router, I go down to Abuja. I can communicate with my wife that, look, I'm already in Abuja, safe and sound. So that is the second methodology in the second phase. And in the third phase, we try to hybridize the first phase and the second phase, and which gave us the route optimization. And there, we look at the shortest path, whereby this communication will not really lag and will not have a break in transmission. That's what calls for the route optimization. So we tested this application on HTTP server, which was fully running. We also configured it on HTTP clients, which was still running. And at the end of the day, we were able to provide or to develop a platform known as IPv6 platform. Now, in this platform, there could be a lot of resources there. Now, you can see the e-ranking, we can see e-journals, we can see university transfer. Like these days in Nigeria, we don't really have students moving from one university to another. We have challenges of that. Then not only that, university ranking, if you look at the global ranking of our university, they use all these metrics in terms of infrastructure to really rank our universities. And that's why we are just going down, because we are not keying into some of this technology. The second result here, we tested the platform using TCP/IP. Yesterday, you could see a lady that was not here, that she was presenting online. And most of us, we see what happened. There was breakage in transmission. Something was breaking. If you look at this diagram, you see that initially the traffic was going. At the time, there is breakage. So we use a concept known as break before make. So immediately that algorithm is done, then you have a stable transmission and the network can be on. Then we also tested it on UDP, in which you can have video conferencing and some other things. So at the end of the day, this particular research is a very good platform whereby universities and other research institutes can also leverage on. So in conclusion, there is no tertiary institution in Nigeria with IPv6 digital services. But I want to say, in University of Ibadan, we have one that is what? That is running. So the developed innovation can provide exchange of digital, such as inter-university course transfer, objective global ranking in Nigerian tertiary education. And it was also observed that the requirement to provide these IPv6 digital services was neglected. So we need platform to facilitate resource sharing, capacity development, resource optimization must be created. I have the references there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And we can sit down for questions afterwards. However, I said no university in Nigeria has IP6, but Ibadan has one working. One or two things, either University of Ibadan is not in Nigeria, or University of Ibadan is not a university. Anyway, thank you very much for your presentation. The next presenter is Dr. Henry Katnion from Federal College of Education, Pangshin, Plateau State. I will advise that you just give short introduction and go to what you brought you here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I stand on all existing protocols. My name is actually Nanbal Jibal Adan. We actually wrote the paper together with Dr. Henry Katnion, so I'm presenting on behalf of the research team. So the topic of our study is the future of science teaching, pre-primary teachers' knowledge of educational robotics in STEM learning in Plateau State. Okay, introduction. So information and communication technology in the 21st century has actually permeated every sphere of life, including education. So you can see from the previous speakers, you can see how we cannot do anything in life without using ICT in one way or the other. Our mobile phones, our everything has to do with ICT. So, and then children of nowadays have also become more technologically engaged in playing games, playing phones, laptops, and even come in contact with robots. So what are educational robots? Educational robots are programmable machines or gadgets that are used in performing a range of tasks by executing input commands. They are programmed to move, to make noise, to light up, to follow instructions as directed. So basically, when you observe that, okay, STEM is being advocated over the world, but then in Nigeria, you find out that the T, that's the technological part, and then the engineering part is not so, well, it's not very, how would I say, it's not actually exposed. I mean, children are not too exposed to these two aspects of STEM. The science aspect, it's easy for teachers to communicate that to little children. Then the mathematics as well, the counting, the addition, and all that. You see, but the technological part and the engineering part is a bit difficult to make there to these children. So here there's a researcher, Sullivan and others, have actually said that children can actually learn through educational robotics. You might think that, okay, it's too advanced for them at that age, but then when they come in contact with this technology, they are able to begin to have, problem-solving skills. They begin to have problem-solving skills, and then other things that would help them to develop as well. So the next slide, please. The purpose of this study is actually to find out, because ours is a college of education, so we train teachers. So how aware are these teachers about educational robotics in STEM classrooms? And then we also want to find out what knowledge do they have about robotics, the educational robotics. How familiar are they? And then can they be able to apply these things? So the next slide, please. So based on those purposes, we're able to come up with 4 different research questions. So we carried out this study. Next slide, please. Okay, the methodology. Okay, the methodology used was the descriptive survey design. So the population actually consists of 150 in-service early childhood education teachers who enrolled in 2022 B.Ed contact session at FC Pangshin. So these are people that are already teaching. These are teachers already. So we wanted to know how aware, how knowledgeable, how skilled are they, and then how can they apply, know whether they can apply the knowledge of educational robotics. So we designed a questionnaire, robotics knowledge questionnaire. We used an instrument that was assigned a 4-skill, strongly agree, disagree, and all that. And then we analyzed the data using the mean and then standard deviation. And then based on that data, we used the 2.5 score. So once we have 2.5 and above, then we say, okay, it's acceptable. Or once it's below, we reject the score. So next slide, please. Okay. So the research question 1, okay, which was trying to find out about the awareness of robotics, educational robotics among the teachers. It shows us that the teachers actually are not aware. In fact, they don't have any awareness. It was very low of educational robots as component of STEM. Okay, the second research question had to do with knowledge. Do they know of it? Apart from being aware of its existence, do they know anything about educational robotics? The results also show that it's very low, quite low. And then familiarity, meaning can they be able to tell you the components, what makes up a robot, and things like that. We found out that they had very little or no exposure as well. The same with the final question, which had to do with the application of educational robotics. So the discussion, this study investigated in-service degree early childhood teachers' competence in 4 aspects of education. Like I had already said, awareness, knowledge, familiarity, and application. And it became apparent from the results that in-service teachers of the early childhood domain have little or no exposure as far as educational robotics is concerned. The findings of this study is consistent with the views of Fabi, Abdulmalik, and Tayamu that some teachers exhibit lack of competence in application of educational robotics at the secondary school level. So our results their results corroborates what we actually also achieved in our study. So in conclusion, the future of STEM learning in Nigeria will depend on the deployment of effective training about educational robotics through continuous professional development for teachers and effective in its application in STEM teaching and future experts in various aspects of robotics innovation. So we have recommendations. So pre-primary in-service teachers should endeavor to build capacity in educational robotics skills for use in teaching and learning. And then we also said that the state Hello. Okay, we said the State Universal Basic Education Board and then the TRCN, the body that is responsible for teacher registration, should design continuous professional training packages and workshops so that these teachers will be exposed to technologies like this. And then the government, of course, should also provide these devices, in our primary and early childhood care schools, so that these kids will be exposed to these technologies early in their life. And then, of course, internet service and then other hardware should be provided so that this technology can actually grow with these children of ours. So these are some of the references that I used. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think your presentation corroborates Dr. Kukola's request that we should not just be static, you should be seeing what we are talking about. There is a protest by students of engineering saying that we have a transformer next to them, and they go through the whole university for 5 years, and they teach them transformer, and they don't get near the transformer. And they are now, they graduate and they will want to be engineers. So thank you very much. We have time for questions. I think I will take 1, 2, 3. No reaction to questions. If you want to, so that we know what time I'm going to give them. I have 3. I thank you very much. So the first speaker, the first question, person that is going to ask question. For those who are online, I will give you my own mic.
All right, thank you. I want to appreciate Dr. Mustafa for that presentation, and you've created an awareness in us, and I hope we go with that. You said so many things, and I just want to pick 2 of those things you said. You said we can decolonize teaching and learning using ICT. You also said technology can fix policy. Technology can fix policy. Now, looking at our peculiarities as Nigerians when it comes to policy implementation, how can we force ICT? How can we force, ICT to begin to see that some of these implementations, or how can we force some of these implementations using ICT? How can we force some of these implementations using ICT? Let me give an example. You talked about smart classrooms and all that. And we know that smart classrooms goes beyond just sending, lecture notes. We have classrooms that are driven by AI these days, such that learners can have fruitful, and collaborative discussion. And how can we force this such that, our policies, begin to work? Now, I want to also commend Dr. Adeniji, talked about, interoperability. I want you to know that we can leverage on your work to also provide fast health interoperability resources for our health, sector, for exchange of data in our health sector. And our brother there, you talked about, teachers in colleges of education. I want us to pay peculiar attention to this, because somehow these same teachers are the ones that will teach our students at the pupils at the primary school, and those who go to secondary school, and then somehow we'll find also these people in the university. There is a story that I want to say, just a single question. Now, all right. Now, the point I want to make is that it is very important that we begin to look at our colleges of education and then begin to see how we can help our teachers at the primary level, at those institutions, through ICT. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The question is the main thing I want. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Just a quick one, because we've got a challenge, and some of you might be questioning what Dr. Pokola has said, but there has to be a policy. I'll tell you, my granddaughter became 1 year old on the 2nd of January. I'll tell you what she's reading right now, virtually. General relativity for babies, quantum physics for babies, rocket science for babies, That is the policy. It's not her. That is the policy in Europe right now. It's not just playing games and buying toys for them. She's just one. So it is a policy. They are thinking mass. We are still thinking grassroots. But the only people, the only organization that can drive that policy, the organization like the Academy of Science. And you can check it, it's online, just Google it. Relative Newtonian physics for babies, Google it, it's by Chris Moore. And so they are there already. So we are way behind. That's my challenge. And it's only now, we can't be waiting for government. So what Dr. Popola is saying is actually even a shadow of what is going on. We are miles, in fact, years behind.
Thank you. Magnus Onoha from West African Green Income Development Institute at Gregory University. Dr. Popola, your technology-defined pedagogy is welcomed within the context of SDG, science and innovation, and SDG. But I have my concern. The concern is when you reeled out the 6 stages of the societies. It reminds me of my own one instinct, one model we have questioned for so long a time, as represented by W.W. Roscoe in the stages of economic growth. And that is just the same trajectory. The hunting stage is like the primitive stage. And if you follow it, it had a linear model. That linear model is what we have questioned for so long. And don't you think, within the context of what understood properly, the models, what you have, it covers the socioeconomic and environmental objective of SDG. But don't you think, bring your model into the loop of secularity, let it be very clear, so that as we begin to mainstream, as we begin to have the discussion on SDG, model will not be subjected to economic. I have modeled so many economic models, so let's not be subject to that linear model, because if you see that stage, so don't you think there's need for us to bring secularity into your model so it becomes very, very clear? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sams. Thank you for the questions. I'm sure they will do justice to this question. However, we need robots, we need clicking, we need all of this. I hope all of us are aware that we need money for all of this. These are not available. If it's not available in primary school, at least it should be available in secondary school. If not available in secondary school, should be at least available in the university. And people say it's not available in the university. I said, you should keep quiet. Don't say anything. Just keep on keeping on. Is how with this policy, very good things that we need to do. Is there a way that robots will just drop from heaven and then we don't pay anything for it, only we mine it and just collect it? So how will lack of money affect all what you are saying? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So let me go a bit practical, and I think it's a privilege again to have the mic. So actually there are some slides that were not shown. It will have actually taken us to where you see what's actually going on. 2 months ago, that was when the what was it called? ChatGPT was launched. And if you are in the tech world and you understand what that one means, we are talking about leveraging data that has been cleaned, warehouse archived, and that's now been embedded in an immersive way for people to leverage on bots, robots that can actually assist you in writing thesis, writing abstract, answer questions more intelligently than you. And when you ask him some questions and he doesn't know, he will tell you he doesn't know. So again, that is where we ought to be. Just before that, we have the metaverse. Metaverse is actually using 3D model that you can actually interact with and give some instruction and play with, like you have the, and many other things that are actually going on now. However, what we are saying is that there should be a transition plan. It is not something that we want or we don't want. It's like when the phone were coming. Is there anybody that has 3310 here now? Nokia 3310. If you have it, let me see it. So it's not a matter, let me see it. Someone, you understand? So then we are like, oh, who is going to use this one? Can you use your finger to even operate a phone? It doesn't make sense to us. But really what we are saying is that the transition in the global economy is unstoppable. Every day you wake up, you are moving. So God that created us shows us that it's unstoppable, because that's why we have every day and night. So the truth of the matter is that the transition in such a way that we found ourselves in this situation, we must be abreast of the reality and we must be ready for change. That's the point. At what rate, at what speed, that's another ball game entirely. So, and that is the fundamental we need to know. Number two, when you talk about decolonization, I think maybe last year, I was speaking on a platform in Kenya, and they were talking about open access and open science. That is where the issue of decolonization came up clearly. There are some things that you are meant to know because that's what the colonial master think you should know. Practically, I was privileged during one of my postdocs to be the first Black person in the lab that was recommended to me by FAO. I went there and I can see that everything that was written there was in the local language of that country because they don't want me to understand. And they said these particular protocols are actually meant for this lab and FAO, but I've been sent there to go and work with those protocols. So what I need to do is that within 1 month, I need to learn that language. And in Nigeria, you know now, I decoded everything and I have it now. What we are saying is that there are things that we push on internet that is generally meant for people that are not experts. You can read anything. But when it goes to some level, they call it black books, dark. And find the web, you have the dark web too. There are areas you don't just go because they believe that is your level. So for us, you need to actually move very fast and understand that what you have been taught. I should stop? Okay. It's talking to you, not me. So we need to really decolonize. What we mean by decolonization is to actually understand our reality. Benchmark it with what they ask you to be doing or to know. Then look at it. There are some, for example, why can't we have vaccine for malaria to date? It's because it's not affecting. And if it has, why is it delayed? Even if you say it's present now. So these are issues that I mean by decolonization. Then when I mentioned the issue of policy, again, what we expected is that government should recognize that academies exist. And they exist in other economies too. Academy of Finland alone, what they are doing in the economy. No government decision is being taken without consultation of the academies. So what we are saying is that you want to do policy review across all the sectors of the economy. Why must you be talking to people in only the economic aspect of it, and you are not talking about the science of it? What is going to lead to production? That is the point we are making. You can't be telling us that you are going to call people from manufacturers of Nigeria, every other thing. Manufacture what? What is wrong? So we need technology that are fit for purpose. And in getting that one done, academies should be consulted. You can't do curriculum review without the academy being consulted when you want STI injection. That is the point. So again, for our society versus Europe, like my brother said it, I have only 20 minutes. I actually want to do a mapping to see SDG, mirroring the SDG with the trend in the advancement of society and look at Nigerian reality. I will not be able to finish that one today. That's why I didn't go into that mapping. But really, what I'm saying is that what's supposed to be our target, what you're supposed to be mirroring when we are talking about development, it is only SDG that we want to say, let's use this as reference. Then we'll be talking from knowledge standpoint at any point in time. People will not just be doing anything and they believe it's part of it. That is the point. Funding research, or funding whatever we are talking, okay, circularity model. Yes, we know that when you have benchmarks, that is when you can actually talk about standardization. Without a reference point, you can't start. Have a reference point, move to standardization. When you standardize within the realities, you move on to optimization. And it is after optimization, you can be talking about maximization of whatever potential. So in this, what we are saying is that there must be a guidance. There must be a reference. We believe there are some communities in Nigeria that are still in hunting stage, society 1.0. Am I lying? And they are still part of this country. Are we saying the same thing? You said they should be doing cashless. They have never even seen ATM in their life. They don't even know maybe it's old Naira they are still spending or the new Naira you are talking. They don't know the difference. So the same thing, when you talk about a majority of the economy, when we say 65% in agriculture, is that not society 1.0? I mean 2.0, agrarian. So can we be talking about industrialization? Are we talking about industry? Even the Sun and the Sun Limited that I used to know when I was small, they are no more. Nobody's asking questions. So should we continue that way? What are we teaching? What are we learning? That's the point. If you are not asked me to speak in problem statements, and I believe this is an academy, and for us, it's something that when we engage with them, we have opportunity to be repeating the same question. And people must answer until when we have this what happens abroad. Many of the time, in many of the abuse process, if you are not an expert, my point when I started was that if you are not an expert on the topic, don't talk. It's an abuse for you to be claiming an authority on what you don't know. Thank you so much.
Okay. My own take concerning this program is that since yesterday, we have a lot of divergent views. So I would like to recommend that these divergent views must be brought to a platform whereby people can share this information. Yesterday, I identified one very important area of another research. There was a speaker, an oral presentation yesterday about menopause. And right there, I quickly wrote something down that this area is an area whereby I can work on. But if I'm not here today, will I be able to get such information? So I want to employ our distinguished professors, like there is need for us to expand our scope. We have a lot of resources in Nigeria, but we are not really tapping into it. And one important aspect is to leverage on technology. Sometimes there is no need for you to even travel to abroad. We have virtual labs these days that you can conduct experiments using some of these things that we have said, which is being driven by technology. So that's my take for today.
Okay, thank you. I think what I would further say is the research that we carried out is just like a preliminary research. So we have actually been awarded a Center of Excellence by TEDFON in our college. And the mandate is to come up with a curriculum for novel ways of teaching early childhood students. So new curriculum for early childhood. So we are hoping that when we go further with this research, we're able to come out with ways, create robots that are localized here, that will be able to help our own children to learn at that early stage. So not all hope is lost. We believe that Nigeria will be great again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We hope that at a communique, whatever we have learned in these sessions shall be actualized by the academy after this time out. So I want to thank the speakers, Dr. MAP. I hope you know what it means. We thank you very much for your time and what you've been doing before this time. And other speakers, I thank you very much. most of what you have said is, I'm sure, your experiment is just to validate Dr. Kukwala's statement. And I hope that you let this IPv6 to be available in all universities in Nigeria. Make it available and people will just latch onto it. I thank every member of the audience for your rapt attention. Thank you very much. So I will invite Dr. Ladipo.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kehinde Ladipo, and I have the honor of chairing the last session this afternoon. The theme of the last session is manufacturing and local content imperatives. Definitely, you all agree with me that if we are going to implement many of the ideas and many of the concepts that have been developed from academia and proposed to us this afternoon, over the last 2 days, including to reinforce and implement the policies, it has to be homegrown. And therefore, the local content imperative is indeed a very veritable and good way of concluding the last 2 days. Let me re-invite Dr. Popoola to the podium. The lead speaker, please go upstairs, Dr. Popoola. The lead speaker for today is the executive chairman of NASENI, the executive vice chairman, yes, executive vice chairman of NASENI. NASENI has been a very, very strong supporter of this conference. Of course, we were looking forward to, and you remember that NASENI has been mentioned a couple of times. Air Vice Marshal Osahon talked about their collaboration with him. But we are also glad to have representing him here, Dr. Popoola. He's number one person, let me put it that way. And I'm not going to introduce Dr. Popoola again because he has been introduced by Professor Familoni. But let me just quickly say one or two things about the person that he's representing, Professor Haruna. Professor Haruna is the Executive Vice Chairman of the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure Development, NASENI. He's also a visiting professor at UNN. He has a double PhD in engineering and is an entrepreneurial specialization. He's been very active in ensuring industry, academia, and government collaboration, which is one of the major things that we need to move forward. He's a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Engineering and has received several awards, and is a board member of several organizations and agencies, including TEDFund and National Nuclear Regulatory Agency that was mentioned yesterday by one of the speakers. I'm sure that Dr. Popoola is going to be an excellent representative in delivering that paper. And any comments, any questions we have, he will do justice to it. Very quickly, I'll invite to the podium as well Permit me if I'm not using the right accolade, so I'll probably not use any. Fatima Dantako, please come forward. Victor Ewemiwe. My apologies for not pronouncing your names very correctly. Adamu Aliyu. Again, adopting the Protocol 2023 by Professor Koji, we are going to ask the three of you, after the late presentation given by Dr. Pokuola, we're going to ask the three of you to give us flash presentations. And I'm going to strictly say not more than 7 to 8 minutes. 7 to 8 minutes. The reason being that we need to finish on time, particularly for those who have planned to leave Abuja this afternoon, which is still possible. So let me ask Dr. Pokuola to please come onto the podium and deliver the talk by Professor Haruno, the Executive Vice Chairman of NASENI, and let him share his ideas on manufacturing and local government imperative for Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again. And to do justice to time, let me stand on the established protocol.
You certainly have more than 8 minutes. I hope you know that, but not 30 minutes.
Okay. So, and I'm standing in for the Executive Vice Chair and Chief Executive of National Agency for Science, Engineering, Infrastructure, NASENI. NASENI is a 31 years old institution thereabout, out of which many of that 31 years has been challenging, let me put it that way, until when the rule of law was mainstream into the operations of NASENI. Today, we can be talking about a research and development or a research development institution that comes under the presidency, which was under the ministry before. And when it was under the ministry, it was not optimizing its potentials. So the President Muhammadu Buhari came in and actually make sure that there is a full implementation of the law establishing NASENI, and that's why it found its way back to the presidency. It is gladdening to actually see what's going on in NASENI for the team of over 165 top Nigerians that are on Research and Development Standing Committee of Third Fund. Some of the recommendations of that for the establishment of National Research and Development Foundation in Nigeria has actually been implemented by some of the activities of NASENI. As of today, we're going to be looking at what are the imperatives of local content vis-a-vis the issue of manufacturing in this country. And like I mentioned, NASENI is not just doing R&D, it's actually doing R4D. For every research, there must be a development component. And that is what it was established to do. So we believe that before now, having said that Professor Arun actually extended his greetings and appreciation to the Academy for inviting back-to-back. He was on this platform, I think, last year, and it was found worthy to be invited this year. He was not taking that one as something of pride, rather he expressed his appreciation. And I think for the topic of discourse, the challenge and our approach to it was that looking at how Nigeria missed out of SDG, and we lose in this country. And we look at it that we cannot continue to say we want to miss out on SDG. If you look at the SDG, we are midway. Again, it calls for evaluation. What happens between when we started 2015 or thereabout date, and we are actually looking at 2030? Are we still going to miss out so that we can conclude? If you are not going to miss out, what do we need to do? So really, that was what NASENI actually looked at, and we started looking at what are those things that we need to do to make sure that Nigeria is not missing out. So For our understanding, manufacturing and local content imperative today is going to actually stimulate more discussion about what we need to do as a country. If you go to the second slide, you're going to be seeing global manufacturing destinations across the world. And when you look at that, you're going to see that none of the African countries are actually there. And you can see the key parameters that are essential for manufacturing in terms of assets, labor, goods, services, and technology. NASENI is central to all of them. How do I mean? For in terms of assets, NASENI has been mandated to establish and develop what you call the national science and engineering infrastructure. So, by default, what it has done so far for that 30 years is to have established nothing less than 10 development institutes across the country. SEDI in Mina, that is Scientific Equipment Development Institute, and Enugu. So you have Prototype Development Institute, that is in Ilesha, Osun State. You have PIMADI. PIMADI is talking about power engineering and equipment manufacturing, that is in Okene. And a quite number of all other ones that are looking at critical sector of the economy. In an addendum to that, NASENI has established a company that has to do with alternative power source for this country, which is looking at production of solar panels. And we are advancing to make sure that it's not only the panel, we are producing the cells. So that project is going to be launched maybe later this year, but the panel production factory is at Karshi, which anybody can actually visit. That is a way of contributing. On the flip back of side of that particular intervention is the issue of the partnership with the China Green Great Wall for the production of local transformer. When you look at the entire package of our power problem, you're going to see problem from generation, transmission to distribution. So looking at the entire value chain, NASENI is strategic to make sure that at least there are clear interventions that we can reference both now and in the future. And what the approach was that about 60 engineers in NASENI were actually sent to China to learn how to produce. Then in the learning process, they produce samples that are made for Nigeria from in China. When they came back, they were empowered to produce the same thing in Nigeria to confirm the knowledge. Now there was now a JV between NASENI and Green Wall in China to establish a production factory for transformer in Nigeria for the first time. And that is already been launched. And as at about 2 weeks ago, the president gave a fast track directives that should be completed and possibly be ready for commissioning before he leaves the office. So those are kind of intervention that NASENI is doing. When it comes to labor, they actually, like I mentioned, issue of capacity building is ongoing. Because what you learn in school, like Prof said, when you said you are electrical and electronic engineer, and you have never visited transformer, it has been blowing in your school, and you are running away like somebody that was written in agriculture, then there is a problem. Because you should understand the sound of a transformer as an electrical engineer. But if you run away like somebody that is reading mathematics, then there's trouble. So really, NASENI has actually engaged in a lot of capacity building. And at the same time, when you are talking about goods and services, part of the strategy of NASENI is to make sure that there are reverse engineering and a lot of things I'm going to talk about briefly later. The new NASENI has the mandate and has the power to make sure that a lot of things that are not being done in this country are being done. Let me just make a reference. NASENI today holds one of the biggest, if not the biggest, research and development fund in terms of implementation of a quadruple helix. In fact, let me say beyond quadruple helix, we are looking at partnership between Nigeria and Czech Republic, whereby 4.5 billion was committed. For the first time, NASENI has exceeded all the potentials in terms of R&D of National Research Fund, of TED Fund. And in this arrangement, you are going to be seeing that we have the industry, we have, in fact, it's compulsory component of that application for you to have an industry partner right away from the beginning. The icing on the cake is that based on this agreement bilateral, there must be a diaspora partner. So it's not just a Nigerian company, you must have a partner abroad for you to actually leverage on this funding. And it must something that must be, has to do with research. It must lead to development of a new thing that is innovative. I can assure you, and I can say categorically clear that 25 institutions in Nigeria won. And I think even the tertiary institutions that are there are up to between 5 and 10. So it is not about something that is not happening. We are at the process of onboarding the second phase by March this year. And the first phase, we are actually going to see their disbursement between this January and March. And I think when you have a cap of 50 million at TET Fund, their own cap is a function of what is the requirement that is going to make that one to be delivered. Those are the paradigms that are changing. And we are happy that there's deepening of research funding across board. Let me say this clearly, that we believe that in the new NASENI, there are new developments that are coming up, like President Muhammadu Buhari Technology Innovation Center that was opened. This is the first time that we have a full package of 4 IR equipment. That is the 4th Industrial Revolution simulation facility that is being installed in this country. We have a high-power computing facility there. Advanced fabrication is there. And I mentioned virtual reality in the morning. When you get there today, you can actually do virtual reality of assembling any equipment, including vehicle and helicopter. So it is not a matter of saying when it's going to happen. It's already here. I'm talking about what I know and what I've seen. I'm not talking about what will happen. So, and I want to believe that these are kind of things that should be replicated across the country. And when somebody, when I was being asked what happens in the tertiary education space, we need to redirect the funding calibration of that space. We have built a lot of bricks that are useless. Can we start building some other infrastructure that will support the bricks? So we need to actually look at that and see what we need to do differently. So the mandate of NASENI, like I mentioned, has to do with Development Institute. So of recent, the president approved another 12 institutes. 6 of them in each, one of them in each of the geopolitical zones for 2 different lines. The first line has to do with Agricultural Manufacturing Equipment Development Institute. The first one is going to be commissioned by special grace of God by the president in the month of February, precisely on 4th of February in Lafayette. And that particular project is going to be completed from beginning to end within 6 months. That is the first time we have a project that is that fast, that was actually acknowledged by the governor of Nasarawa State yesterday when we paid him a courtesy call in his office, because he said personally he monitored the project. So what is going to be happening in that institute? All the key implements, because why people are running away from agriculture in this country is not because they don't want to eat or they don't like good foods. The youth can never be interested in anything that will bring drudgery to them. You can't ask them to use cutlass and hoe and say, go to farm. You are just talking to yourself. If you can suffer it and you have overgrown that sufferness and you can keep it, this generation of people cannot keep it. So the only thing you can do for them is to make agriculture to be smart. And at the same time, you can use their tool to do some of these things. So really what is happening there is that is a concept that we have a farm, experimental farm, and a farmhouse, and then you can take some of the products that can be processed to finished product in that particular place, leveraging on laboratories that are going to be of national reference. So that is the idea. And that is going to be 6 across the country. I mentioned what NASENI is doing around the power sector, both in the alternative power and in the value chain, in terms of what is going to be the contribution of different transformer. And like AVM mentioned in the morning, if you can sit down and estimate how much are we spending on important transformer in a year compared to what we need to do, and make sure that we have we do the needful. Down the line, there is agricultural manufacturing equipment section. Now we are actually talking about even food, moving beyond agricultural products. That is the mistake people make. You think when you produce in the farm and that's the end product, that your own end product is the starting product for another processing line. So there is an intervention that will be coming up again, and that is part of what was signed with the governor of Cross River State. One of the AMEDIs, the Agricultural Research, Equipment and Manufacturing Center, is going to be in Cross River State. The the groundbreaking ceremony was done, I think, about a week or thereabout ago. And we are racing up to make sure that all of them have a completion period of nothing less than between 6 months and 1 year. That is the speed NASENI want to actually actualize this. So modernizing the food chain is very important to Naseni. And at the same time, we are talking about global competitiveness. In global competitiveness, I can tell you that Naseni has developed over the years nothing less than 150 products. About 20 of them are already patented. And we are talking about the valley of despair and death between prototyping and commercialization. So that is the new entry point we are looking at in terms of changing the paradigm. The law of Naseni was talking about prototyping. When you have a prototype, no serious businessman wants to buy a prototype. We are talking about now converting those prototypes to MVPs. So when we have MVPs, that's minimum viable product, then we can actually have the HS code and ISIC of this, and then we can internationalize all these products by coding them and use a lot of electronic system to do e-cataloging. We can do a lot of things so that with barcode system, it can be bought anywhere in the world. Part of the new suggestion will be for Naseni to have its own e-commerce platform whereby R&D can be marketed. A lot of people are working in the tertiary education space. There is no marketplace for them. So going forward, the new thinking we are working around the leaders at Naseni is to make sure that we change all this paradigm and make sure that we move forward. Let me say that Naseni is moving at, with global trend, and in these areas of manufacturing that are new to us: additive manufacturing, immersive manufacturing, virtual manufacturing, smart manufacturing. They are not exactly the same thing. Fourth Industrial Revolution platforms was being developed. I mentioned the issue of virtual reality, computer-aided design. You don't waste material again. We have CNC machine, we have lathes that can assist you to do the design. And lastly, of recent, we are looking at financial engineering, whereby we are looking at integration of blockchain technology to the financial sector. I can assure you that the partners, the partners in this research, in this regard, is Spain. Spain is based in Norway, and we are already moving forward to make sure that we actualize this. In that wise, we're going to use this platform to be able to disburse a lot of intervention fund, and we could be able to track data based on that intervention fund. All what we hear today is that government want to do 1 billion intervention fund. Where does it start? Where does it end? You don't know. So with this technology, it's going to be the first fintech that is going to be backed by the federal government of Nigeria through the commitment of Naseni. Naseni, we have about 30% equity in this, and it's one of the projects that I currently drive. So in that, we're going to see that we are not just talking about, it's with remitter, it's with this. What happens with government data too? So we are going to actually see this in terms of disbursement, tools development, and the consumer application, at least to start with. We have seen it working in other economies because this particular technology is already operational in about 11 economies in the world. For the concluding remarks, because of time, I think I'll be privileged to read them one by one so that at least I can conclude the way you would like it. Before I go into that, part of what Naseni does in the space of knowledge economy are listed there. They have mandate for reverse engineering. See any equipment, see any technology of interest that will work in Nigeria, bring it in, then break it down and actually build it. You understand? Then joint projects. So you can actually do a lot of joint projects with institutions, both locally and abroad. Venture development. You can have JV with organizations if they have the mandate to do that. Technology transfer, a lot of that. In terms of tractorization, that is part of what Naseni is doing. And signing of implementable MOUs. It's not only all the MOUs that Naseni signs. If it is not implementable, Naseni has no business in that. Internationalization. And the last SDG goal, which has to do with partnership, is very dear to the heart of Naseni. Because the truth is that people in Naseni and the team, both scientists and engineers, cannot do it alone. The latest thing we did around circular economy, which has to do with plastic, was in partnership with a firm in Lagos. And our idea is to make sure that Naseni becomes the hub for harnessing carbon credit for this country, where everybody can key in. You know, there's a minimum threshold of nothing less than 20,000. So you cannot do that one as a single entity. So we are trying to create a desk at Naseni. These are new interventions we want to run and make sure that at least we are changing the paradigm in our little way. More or less, let me read all these concluding remarks. The first one NASENI believes, on behalf of Professor Aruna, is the one saying this now. The greatness of Nigeria among Committee of Nations and our global competitiveness lies in the massive development of STI and engineering infrastructure that can support the resource base of the economy, and which is primarily the mandate of NASENI. Just put the infrastructure, let people be able to leverage, be it school, be it individual, be it SMEs. 2, the capacitation of national local content imperatives are critical to sustainability of development intervention. I will strongly recommend that the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDG, which is the national focal point for Nigeria SDG implementation, to reach out to the scientific and engineering community for partnership and collaboration on their activities. This becomes very important. Academy of Science is supposed not to be pursuing them. They're supposed to be pursuing Academy of Science. But if Moses does not come to Mountain, I think Mountain should ask Moses what is going on. The Nigeria Academy of Science should extend the hand of fellowship to this office and provide the needed inputs and support for our collective national prosperity. Otherwise, if we leave it in the hand of politicians and the bureaucrats, they will not ask questions, and they will tell you, you are not asking questions too. NASENI, under my leadership, that is Professor Aruna saying now, not me, is committed to signing worthy and implementable memorandum of understanding nationally and internationally in this regard. I know NASENI is already working with Academy of Science, but we can come up with more specific things that we can use to even challenge NASENI to. That is the point. I mentioned the issue of shared facility. I've mentioned many things. So I think these are areas that to say, oh, NASENI, come, wait a minute. These are national priorities. Why are we not working on together on this? The government of Nigeria can leverage NASENI establishment to deliver on SDGs and competitiveness. What I mean by that is that NASENI has headquarters in Abuja. They have existing 10 institutes. President has approved another 12 institutes, making 22. Then they have 2 centers. No, they have 1 center. That is the Center on Advanced Material and Nanotechnology, the only one in the country on nanotechnology. Then there is a company that has been registered and is already operational. That's the solar company. The new company that has been incorporated is NASENI Spain Limited, which will be looking at financial engineering. All of these put together can be challenged. And let us see what we can do together. I'm saying this, that before the end of 2023, the thinking is that NASENI should be in the 36 states of the Federation, so that people can have a place they can walk in and say, okay, I want to do this R&D. One thing that works for NASENI again is that because of the system-wide, when you go to any of the center and you have a problem they cannot solve, they can refer you. We need a reference point in R&D space and STI ecosystem in this country. And that is what NASENI is trying to create. It is my sincere belief that the outcome of this conference will reshape the future of our country in the manufacturing sector by sustainably managing our national local content imperative for the attainment of SDG. I say thank you all on behalf of Professor Aruna.
I think we need to give Dr. Babalola a very, very Apopola, such that Professor Haruna will hear wherever he is. So can I ask us to, you see, I can even stand up without my walking stick. That shows you how excited I am. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Popola. And this is brilliant. This is brilliant. And what a way to start ending the today's session. You've also kept very much on time. I want to thank you for that. And for the, I'd like to, as others join you, let me call on the next speaker, which is Fatima Dantanko. Good. I'm going to urge you as well to give a flash presentation so that we can have a little bit more time for discussions. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Fatima Dantanko from National Biotechnology Development Agency. So I'll be talking on advancing the search for botanical insecticide. the prospect of Lagera turdenta as a larvicide. So it's this, one of the vital components of global malaria program is vector control. So we'll be looking at how to control the vector, which is the mosquito that's the vector of malaria. So we're thinking of using plants. Plants have been used for several years for the control of mosquito, but the advent of synthetic insecticide overshadowed them. But this synthetic insecticide has some drawbacks such as resistance. The mosquitoes have now become resistant to some of these insecticide. So the need for research on new insecticides such as plants. So the plant we'll be talking about here is Lagera turdenta. Lagera turdenta is actually biologically, if you're thinking of using a plant for any activity, for biodiesel, bioinsecticide, you have to think of the food chain. The plant should be a plant that is not eaten. So this plant is naturally found as a wheat in the northern part of Nigeria. The plant itself, the leaves of the plant looks like that of tobacco plant. So that's why in Hausa we call it taba taba, which means taba. Taba means cigarettes in Hausa. Tobacco, as you all know, is one of the early plants that has been used for mosquito control. So the plants were exploring the potential of this plant as a larvicide, mosquito larvicide. Next slide, please. The objectives of this study is to determine the compounds present in these plants, in the fractions of the plant, to determine the effect of the plant, the crude extract of the plant on larvae of mosquito, and then to determine the effect of the various chromatographic fractions on the larvae of mosquito, then to determine the effect of these plants on other selected non-target organisms that can be found in the same water body as the mosquito larvae. Here we have the methodology. WHO protocol for larviciding was deployed. The larvae were collected from their natural breeding habitats. Next slide, please. Then my results for the components present, they were determined based on their structure by NMR. Here are the sum of the components. Next slide, please. For the larvicidal activity, we can see that at 500 milligram per liter, there was 100% mortality. Then for the crude extract, 4 of the fractions were termed to be, next slide, 4 of the fractions were termed to be active fraction because they exhibited more than 80% mortality at that 500 milligram per liter. So we subjected them to dose response bioassay, and then probit analysis were conducted based on the results. Next. So from here, you can see that from the chemical composition based on NMR, the 3 fractions that were active, the components were linoleic acid, alpha amylic acetate, and some other terpenes. So we could conclude that these components were, these compounds were the active compound. They were the ones that caused the toxicity in the larvae. Next, please. So lethal concentration was determined. The lethal concentration actually is the concentration that can kill, based on probit analysis, that can kill the larvae at 50% or at 90%. So for here, you can see that from the lethal concentration, you can see that the fractions, the active fractions, were more toxic than the crude extract. So we could say that the fraction were more active because the crude extract has other components inside that may have maxed the activity of the fractions, activity of the major components that had larvicidal activity. So the effect of the plants was also tested against some selected organisms that were found in the water body, such as the mosquito fish, water bug, and water beetle. Suitability index was conducted. From here, you can see that you needed a very high dose before it will kill those organisms. So suitability index was conducted on them. Suitability index is just to know whether it is safe for those organisms. And a suitability index of more than 1 means that it is actually safe. From here, we can see the suitability index ranges from 1.83 to 3.214. So it means it's very safe to those organisms. So we could conclude that some of the compounds present in these plants have mosquitocidal activity. So it's not just, so if in selecting a plant for in testing a plant for insecticidal activity, you consider two things. Either the plant, you want to use it as an extract, you want to apply it directly as an extract to develop the larvicide, or you want to study the structure of those compounds to know how it works. And when you determine the structure, you can actually develop a new synthetic insecticide, since the normal ones that we have, the mosquitoes tend to be resistant to them. So from here, we determine the structure of those compounds that I said, this linoleic acid. So it could be used based on the structure. We could design or synthesize a new insecticide. This new insecticide, because it's new, the structure is new, so the development of resistance by this mosquito will be delayed. So thank you for listening.
That's an excellent flash presentation. And I hope that the remaining two speakers will do exactly. You are very, very much to point. And thank you for an excellent presentation, Dr. Dantanko. Let me quickly invite Dr. Victor.
Good afternoon, Madam President. Please permit me to stand on the already existing protocol. My name is Enwemiwe Victor, not Doctor. I will be presenting a paper titled Acceptability of Edible Larvae in Incorporated Pie among students in Niger Delta University, Nigeria. It is a serious hurdle to guarantee quantity supply of food, especially for a growing world population. It has been depicted by FAO that the world will embrace insects, and this prediction is happening now. Entomophagy is the habit of eating insects. This can happen either by directly eating them as food or indirectly eating them as using them as livestock feed. Over 2,000 species of insects are consumed worldwide, and as you can see with this figure, this happens in Asian countries, in Central Africa, and some countries in Northern America. Next slide. This consumption is implicated in 14 other. And in these Asian countries, innovations like incorporating insects into familiar food substances are common. But in Nigeria, we only harvest insects from the wild, prepare them and sell them or even eat them. So these incorporations or innovations are lacking in Nigeria. So the common form at which insects can be incorporated, they can be incorporated into pastas, they can be incorporated into pies, they can be incorporated into cookies, candies, even in alcoholic drinks and beverages. So we observe that in the university, staff and students snack a lot. So we decided to incorporate edible larvae in this pie to ascertain the acceptability in the university. So this study was carried out in Delta State University, Abraka. Live edible larvae were sourced from a well-known vendor. These edible larvae were washed, degutted, dried, unsalted, and preserved in the refrigerator before incorporation. So these edible larvae were grinded, then mixed with the flour, then used to produce this pie, which looked familiar with the normal conventional pies. Next slide. Okay. We adopted the descriptive study, sampling descriptive design. Then we blindly incorporated these pies, then used the quarter sampling techniques to using this technique for this study by using a semi-structured questionnaire. Now, this questionnaire was sectioned into some parts, like social demographic factors of these respondents were recorded, taste and smell of samples, willingness to take a bite, consumer acceptance, frequency of exposure, to insects, and the knowledge and attitude of participants were recorded. Now, a study has actually reported that in trying new products, we should adopt the younger age. Now, 500 pieces of sample A, which is the conventional pie, was produced, and another sample B was produced, and every participant took sample A and sample B on their right and the left hand without knowing the content of what they were holding. These participants, after they were briefed about the nitty-gritty of the study, they were allowed to take a bite to determine the taste, which tasted better and which smelled better. Go back, please. Which tasted better. So the constituent of sample A is a conventional pie, while sample B is unconventional pie, which had the insect condiments in them. Then at the end of this hedonic test, participants were briefed of the constituents of what they participated on. Next slide. Next slide. Statistical analysis was our data was coded in Microsoft Excel, and we use SPSS analysis. Chi-square test was used to check the relationship between socio-demographic factors and other factors related to this study. Next slide. In our result, we observed that participants were more of younger age group, and they were more of females, singles, undergraduates, and who were financially unstable. Looking at the frequency, the knowledge of participant to edible insect, we observed that most of our participants have heard about edible insects and they know what they are, but unfortunately, most of them have never tried eating insects. Now we ascertain the taste and willingness to eat either of the pie. We observed that majority of these participants attested that this pie tasted better, tasted well. Sample A. Samples were attractive, and a bit to identify which sample actually tasted new. Majority of these participants attested that sample B, which is the unconventional pie, tasted new. Then they were willing to continue eating sample A, which is the conventional pie. Number 3, willingness to accept edible insects. We observed that females were willing to consume these edible insects if mass-produced, even in the future, and they were females of the younger age. Next slide. Number 4, we try to ascertain the smell, the response to smell of these samples. Females had better smell, were better at ascertaining that this species of these samples smelled nice, and they were females of the younger age equally. Then equally, we looked at table 5, the taste of samples with demographic factors. We found out that even females ascertained that these samples tested well, and they were females of the younger age. So it shows that females have that sense of smell and taste, which could be linked to the fact that they are common with cooking and all of that. So there's a link between knowledge and Tambo in 2016 ascertained that the respondents in their location in Kenya had about 88%, and that informed the acceptability of their edible, their sausage, Picret incorporated sausage. But in Italy, there was a very low consumer willingness to incorporated products. In conclusion, edible larvae pie was accepted amongst consumers in this study. Younger age consumers appear to be more receptive to consuming edible larvae pie. Novel food products involving insects can adopt these younger age groups. The taste and attractiveness were observed to cause some sense of dissatisfaction. It is hereby recommended that taste and attractiveness should be enhanced by the addition of flavors and more ingredients. This is a baseline survey. We are geared to looking at the large-scale acceptability in the near future. Thank you very much for listening.
So we see the pictures of the pie. Thank you very much, Mr. Victor. Please sit down. Thank you. I'd like to invite, is it Adamu Aliu? Yes, please.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Adamu Aliu, a PhD student with Chemistry Department, NDA, and a staff of NIPRID. I'll be presenting on a topic, quantification of phenolic acid and flavonoid compound in some spices from North Central Nigeria using HPLC DAD. Spices has been defined by FAD as aromatic vegetable substance in whole, broken, or grounded form, whose significant function in food is seasoning rather than nutrition. They help to spice up insipid food and add zest to a diet that will otherwise be categorized as a monotonous one, making it more palatable. And they have been identified as sources of phytochemicals, specifically phenolic compounds. And these phenolic compounds are responsible for the health benefit of spices according to literature. But now in Nigeria, most researchers, when they do their research, the focus is on total phenolic content in terms of total flavonoid, total phenol, and total tannin content. We are not looking at the contribution of the individual phenolic compound gallic acid, chlorogenic ferulic acid, benzoic acid, catechin in .973, and in some cases we had 0.999, and the limit of detection and limit of quantification was 1.953 microgram per liter per mil and 5.859 microgram per mil respectively. The relative standard deviation of the interday and intraday precision is also shown. The repeatability is also there on the screen. The accuracy of the method also gave us a good range. In all, the method is adequate for the analysis. And table 1 and 2, next slide, table 1 and 2 shows all those parameters I mentioned earlier. The next slide, just continue. This is the fingerprint we got from the HPLC analysis, a stack view of each of the spices. Continue. Now, the HPLC analysis revealed that gallic acid, ferulic acid, catechin, epicatechin, and quercetin were widely distributed in all the spices, while chlorogenic acid, caffeic acid, ellagic acid, ferulic acid, and benzoic acid were in the Ocimum species, the Ocimum gratissimum and Ocimum basilicum. And they were all, the Ocimum species were also very, very rich in rutin flavonoid compound, while apigenin was completely absent in all the leafy spices. Ellagic acid, benzoic acid were completely absent from the rhizome spices, while traces of chlorogenic acid, ferulic acid, and caffeic acid were seen in the rhizome spices. Next slide, please. Quercetin is the most abundant flavonoid in the turmeric spice, while rutin, like I mentioned earlier, is the most abundant flavonoid compound in the Ocimum species. Turmeric does not contain rutin, and only a trace of rutin was seen in some ginger samples. The garlic acid from Abuja and Nasarawa were not significantly different, while apigenin in samples from Nasarawa and Niger were not significantly different. This is the table of the result I got. In conclusion, the leafy spices tend to be richer in phenolic acids, while the rhizome spices were richer in flavonoid compounds, specifically catechin, epicatechin, quercetin, and apigenin. These are my references. Thank you for your audience.
I think we should give all the speakers a very round, loud applause, because they cooperated with us with their flash-like presentations and kept us very much on time. We have time for some questions. I have an online. I have a question for from online for Dr. Pokuola. Right. But let me start, Dr. Pokuola, by saying that one of the overriding principles in many of the presentations we've had over the last 2 days is the aspect of collaboration and cooperation amongst all the various agencies. Naseni's vision is very broad, but there's also the NCDMB, Nigerian National Content Development Management Board. How much of overlap do you have? I know they are very much into virtually everything, you know, including capacity development. That's one question. And then also in terms of, what about NOTAP? I think we will be interested in understanding to what extent you are collaborating and interfacing with NOTAP. And there's a question for you here from Nasarawa State, the home of solid minerals. Many of our people are dying because of the crude method of exploitation of the solid minerals in the state. How can we solve this problem using technology? Is Naseni thinking about an AI-based solution to solve this problem? Can Naseni initiate a grant if there's no solution yet? Those are the questions for you. Let me give you a few minutes to address this. And then okay. Thank you. I've been reminded that we only have a few minutes more. So I'll be open for 2 questions. Let's be gender sensitive. Madam, you are number 1. And another person. I'm going to be very, very selective here. Okay, I'll make it 2. Professor Familoni, 2. And sir, let me give the opportunity for a young guy, the one in the round t-shirt. Very, very quick questions, please. Very, very quick questions. So, Dr. Pokuola, please very quickly address those comments. Yeah. Okay. No, madam, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much to all the presenters for their wonderful presentations. I have questions for the Mr. Enwemiwe and Mr. Aliyu. The first question is about the edible worm incorporation in meat pie. It generated quite a lot of responses from behind here. And speaking as somebody who particularly likes eating insects, I thank you for your presentation. We are not particularly adventurous people as Nigerians, and I know you would have a lot of resistance for your panel to even taste your product. So what I was expecting to see was an analysis of the protein content of your insect pie, an analysis cost comparison to see which is cheaper, whether using beef or using edible worms will make your pie, the prices of both kind of pies. These are the ways by which you can break down the resistance Nigerians have culturally and, health-wise too. There are justifiable reasons to be afraid of eating insects. So if you show them that, oh, it's safe, it has high protein content that will help prevent marasmus and kwashiorkor and replace meat that has become astronomically expensive. If you show them also that it will help in a way to stop the crisis between farmers and settlers nationwide, these are the issues you can tie to entomophagy in your region and in Nigeria.
Thank you.
Particularly, I wanted to see the amino acid composition of meat pie produced with insects. That way, I'll be able to brag to my sisters who were very scared behind me here that they're actually missing out. And I hope that the next work you do, you will incorporate farah, which is what we eat in northern Nigeria. And when I took it to the US, like I mentioned, who didn't eat farah. Americans loved our farah. Thank you very much for your work. I hope you can incorporate that next time. The second person, and I'm afraid to make my comments because I don't want to end up in NDA guard room, but the man from the Nigerian Defense Academy, please, why did you say that you wanted to check the individual composition, the composition of the individual phenolic acids? What knowledge does that add to the extensive body of work that has been done on phenolic acid composition of Nigerian spices? And when you were comparing between Abuja and Nasarawa, I was not surprised to see that you didn't find any differences because climatically, in terms of soil composition, in terms of the agricultural zones, Nasarawa and Abuja are basically one and the same. There was not likely to be any difference. So I wanted to know the reason for your comparison. Thank you very much.
The second, yes, him. And Professor Familoni.
Thank you, sir.
Your question should be very direct, please.
Thank you, sir. This is to Dr. Fatima. Please, how safe is this insecticide to humans, and how lasting is it? Very important, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Familoni. Maybe okay. I know there are more people who have raised their hands. I recognize you, but we really have to manage our time.
Thank you very much, sir. To Dr. Fatima, I was very happy when you mentioned NMR in analysis of your compound. However, at the end, I didn't see any structure of the compound that you were talking about. But what did you now use NMR for? And for the second, for the person that is adding the larvae, you did not mention the type of larvae that you are using, so that we see the one that we want to eat there and the one that we not like to eat. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can I ask Dr. Popola to first respond?
So I thank you so much, the chair. And I think mine are just two questions that has to do, one with collaborations and cooperations with both NOTAP and the Content Development Board. If you look at the Content Development Boards, the primary objective was in the extractive industry. Yes, they have a clear mandate in terms of adding value to our hydrocarbons and things that are around that. I can tell you for a fact that NASEN is actually open to collaboration in all the aspect that has to do with R&D or R4D in the country. So working with content development on anything that has to do with manufacturing is going to be a win-win for NASENI any day, anytime. And I can assure you that there are a lot of things that we know when they are cross-cutting, we work together to make sure that it is done. Remember, for the issue of NOTAP, NASENI was actually initially under Federal Ministry of Science and Tech. So like I mentioned, the issue of patents that is ongoing in many of the products of NASENI involves NOTAP. So NOTAP, NASENI have actually even met on different fora, including the RDSC. The two DGs are part of the Standing Committee of Research and Development for the country. So I can assure you that NASENI works with people based on purpose, and at any point in time, if there are going to be need for collaboration or cooperation, that's going to be defined. And in addendum to that is the internationalization too. So that said, for solid minerals, I can tell you for fact that the Development Institute of NASENI that was located in Nasarawa State is called SOMEDI. SOMEDI means Solid Minerals Equipment Manufacturing Development Institute. I was privileged to be there for the first time, I think last Friday, on a visit, on a working visit, and I could see the kind of facilities that are in the institute. Part of it is what they call, I think I will remember the name before I finish my talk, and I guess so, where they actually process gemstones and they do the polishing and every other thing. I was able to see a couple of them that are there. The entire setup was actually to solve some of this problem, because the artisanal miners go in raw and like you're using cutlass and to do farming. And they are actually going to environment they don't understand, including the toxicity of those environments. So the risk is very high. So the challenge here you have just mentioned is that, can we incorporate IoT? Can we incorporate AI to make sure that we fast track mining? Yes. Yes, in the sense that there are NASENI institutes that are actually established to support such a thing. For example, you have the Electronics Development Institute, LD, that is in Oka in Anambra State. And I know there is a particular laboratory that was actually on AI. That's where you use a lot of smart technology and sensor. They develop it for smart homes. So the same technology using AI, writing the right programs, having the right data can assist in smart mining. So my takeaway on this is that, yes, we have mechanical mining, we have the modernization of mining processes, but NASENI possibly should be looking in the future at issue of smart mining, whereby we could use robots we have been talking about to go in there and there won't be any contamination or whatever. And if there is anyway, it's just a machine, not human being. So I think that would be a way to go. But as at present, the institute that was established by NASENI there is for solid mineral development. And that is where NASENI connects local content to manufacturing requirements of our country. When you go to any of these locations, they consider the availability of resources, be it asset, human resources, that is good for that particular institute before citing it. So we map those resources that are local content to the needs of the people, and that's been the approach. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much for your question. For the first question, how safe it is to human? The normal larvicide that we use now is the thermophos. The thermophos has been reported to have some negative effect to humans. It has been reported, some cases have been reported of people, the users having symptoms like headache, dizziness, memory loss, and other things. But this plant has history of being used traditionally to cure some ailments with no side effect to humans. But I didn't test it, but based on literature, it has been proven to be safe for human usage. So I believe it is safe. It is a safer alternative. Then for how stable it is, the plant actually, we use the non-volatile and the volatile component. The volatile, which is the essential oil, was actually more toxic to the larvae, but it was highly volatile. So that was why I didn't even present it here. It was highly volatile. So it's in terms of practical applicability, it's not advisable, but this one is more stable. So it is practically applicable. So for the NMR, currently in NABDA, we are trying to we are planning on developing bioinsecticide actually. So using some of these plants. So we've not yet patented some of this work. So that's why I didn't really present some of the data. Thank you.
Mr. Victor.
Thank you very much, Ma and Prof, for the questions. First of all, analysis of protein content, and this is actually a baseline survey. I have a proposal for a larger scale acceptability. In that proposal, I have actually factored in nutritional characteristics of this pie, even the microbial contaminations, and even the shelf life for extended preservation. Then for cost implication, I think I would add that to that proposal. Thank you very much, Ma, for that. Then for the type of larvae that I used, for the sake of time, I skipped that. I actually incorporated the African palm weevils. It can be, you can see that on figure 3 in my slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our lead speaker. Please express our appreciation to Professor Haruno, and when we see him, we'll tell him that you did excellently well to represent him. I'd also like to thank the 3 presenters here, and also those online for listening very well and even contributing to the discussions. At this point, I'm
yes.
sorry,
Okay.
Very
Okay.
briefly.
Please, on your question, why the individual polyphenolics? Now, growing condition can affect the composition of plants from literature, and the growing conditions include the climate, include even the soil on which the plant is being grown. And that is why the interest is on individual polyphenolic content, because even the same batch of the same spice could have different composition. And like I said in my presentation, most of the work online, people just report total phenolic content, total flavonoid content, without bringing into account the contribution of each of those compounds. Then secondly, on why I expected a difference between Nasarawa and samples from Abuja. Well, the reason why I chose North Central is also to validate that perception we have that if you are collecting samples from the same place, they should have the same composition. But sometimes it's not always like that. Even in my presentation, it's 1 or 2 instances that you had that there was no significant difference between spices from different locations. In some of them, there was a significant difference. Thank you.
My apologies for almost omitting you to respond. My sincere apologies. I guess I was in a hurry to make sure that we keep on track. So I'd like to invite the Vice President, Professor Sambo, who is also the chairman of the Conference Planning Committee, to give his closing remarks. Thank you. Let's step down.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kehinde Ladipo, for chairing the last session very well. Madam President, members of the Council of the Nigerian Academy of Science, distinguished fellows, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of the 4th Nigerian Academy of Science 4th scientific conference. Having participated in all the 3 previous conferences, I can say that the 2 keynote speeches of this particular outing, along with 7 lead presentations, as well as the 21 oral presentations, are at a higher pedestal than the previous ones. In fact, the time management of this particular outing is also much better. You know, we need to manage our times. When we allot particular minutes, it is good for us to follow the time spent. I'm aware that so many of us want to participate in the visit to the innovation hub that their organization made one of the goodwill messages yesterday. It's a very beautiful place, and so we will quickly finish so that delegates can go to that particular organization. And also tomorrow, a few of us, including Naseni, will be visiting the NAS land size in Wasa district of Abuja. We need to go there and see the developments there. But for this particular assignment that I've been given, I want to thank most sincerely the Honorable Minister of Science and Technology. He gave us the motivation to do this conference at the highest level that we've been doing. And also, he met with us severally. We met twice before the conference with him. Last one was very impromptu, and he saw us, and you had the goodwill message his representative gave us yesterday. We also need to thank Naseni for being the agency that has promised to give the largest amount towards hosting this conference. Again, we need to thank the National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion and Energy Commission of Nigeria, my former office, for also supporting us reasonably well. The 2 keynote presenters, we know we've been pushing them, and they, like I said, their presentation was the best compared to all the other presentations. And the 7 lead papers, you had them all. They were excellent. Again, all your presentations, the 21, and the posters across the road, they were very good. We thank all of you very much. Of course, I need to thank the president of the academy, Professor Ekanam Bread, for giving the organizing committee the necessary support to do the needful towards organizing this conference. The secretariat, led by the ES, Dr. Doyin Odubanjo, they are very hardworking, and that's what we had been looking forward to them, and they do not disappoint us. I want to also highlight that I note several of you traveled to come to this conference, and traveling by road, like the one Professor Akanji did from Mina to this place with the bandits across, and the one I had to do by road from Kaduna to here by road with powerful prayers. Bandits didn't catch me. So I thank you, all of you, for coming to this conference, and I hope you will come. One thing we didn't do, we did not send slips for you to write concise ideas on how to improve the conference. So we want you to write by email to the academy and send your ideas on how the 5th outing, God willing, by January 2024 will be done. I thank you very much for your attention. Well, I think it's in the program, so I just hand over the microphone to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. we've come to the end of the conference, and looking at the participants, I want to thank you all for staying till the end. You know, usually when you attend conferences by this time, the last day, the hall will be like 1/3 full. But I have observed that everybody has sat till the end. There has been a lot of learning during the conference. Do you agree with me? Everybody learned. The fellows and the mentees have learned. There has been a whole lot of mentoring, I think. I can see presenters interacting with the fellows, and also networking, because cards have been exchanged and addresses and phone calls. So that is good. We promise that we will continue to foster collaboration between researchers, industry, and government, so that they can work together to promote research for development. RSDs. So that's what we are up to. Because if we don't do that, then we'll be going from where we were to where we were. Also, we trust that we've encouraged researchers to conduct research to solve problems. I hope we have done that. And we look forward to seeing you at our next conference. If you are going to attend, please, let's see your hand up. Oh, that is nice. Very pleasing. And we promise you that in the near future, we will be hosting this conference on our land, in our sites. Not immediately now. I won't be the president then, but we'll be hosting it on our site one day, because we have a 4-hectare land given to us by government, completely fenced by the fellows levy. And then we are going to have a science library, a science museum, an admin block, conference center, and some accommodation. So we want to adopt
Wake up in the morning, hallelujah, chasing the money, chasing it back, no looking back. Me and my God, steady fire, we live